welcome to High Spirits, where we explore the energy around us. I'm here today with my friend Christine Banks. Welcome.
Thank you, Christine. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, we're excited to have you. Chris is a local Reiki practitioner and Reiki master, and she is doing a home business in Plainville called The Healing Touch.
Correct. It's in my home.
Mm-hmm. And so today, Chris and I wanted to discuss the other side of practice, not only in the professional realm. So we've talked to people that use energy for sound healing. We've talked to people that do Reiki, which is energy healing. We've talked to people that use the energy of intuition in their jobs. Many people use that in their day-to-day lives as well. But I also wanted to speak to the aspect of the personal use of a life of seeking this sort of information and energy work in general. So Chris and you are the person that introduced me to Reiki.
True.
Which is energy healing. And this was 10 years ago, 15,
Long time
13
ago.
years ago, something like that. And you were the very first person that I ever received Reiki from. And together we've done all kinds of fun energy things together, little sunrise, moonrise, change of season things. And I think we've explored a lot of this theme together. So I thought it would be fitting to have you come in and talk about how through life as a seeker, you can learn so much. And I thought you could tell us how you started.
Absolutely. So about 15 years ago, I was diagnosed with MS. And I've always had an interest in the supernatural, angels, spirits, things like that. And I was having a hard time, a very hard time. And a friend of ours did Reiki. And she's like, this could help you mentally, physically, with your ailments, etc. So I started going to her and I noticed a difference. And I started noticing I was more positive. My ailments were not 100% better, but they were better. And I think a lot of it also had to do with the mindset of being positive. So she basically said, you can keep coming for sessions or you can learn to do it on yourself. And I said, hey, that would be an awesome experience. So that's what I did. I went to her first Reiki class and just learned a lot and took it all in. And before you knew it, I was at master's level. I can't explain it except it was just a calling to me. And it's changed my life for the better for so many reasons. So that's really how I got into it.
The calling part of it. And you mentioned that you had always been interested in it. Did you have anyone else in your life that was interested in it growing up? Did you have a family member? Was there anyone that you could tell was into sort of other modalities?
My mother.
Okay, your mom.
My mother, and it turns out on my mother's side of the family, we're all Italians.
Okay.
And everybody on that side of the family was into it, whether it was like spirituality or, playing with, different gemstones and card readings and things like that. So I've been interested in a very young age, but it wasn't until I became an adult that I started doing things with it.
And when you talk about those interests, were they more like a fun side interest, or was anyone in your family very serious about it in terms of a belief system? Did it seem like, let's play with gems? Or was it, here's why?
My cousin.
Okay.
My cousin used to dabble with Wiccan. And
so it was more
formal for her, but I would go over there and she would do some card readings on me, work with some gemstones and things like that on me. So.
Okay. Now it sounds like you, if you don't mind my asking, because what I'm wondering is how open-minded your family may have been to allow this sort of discussion. And if you came from a strict religious tradition, or if you're, together your belief system was a little more open-minded, would you say? Or?
Yeah, I was raised Roman Catholic my whole life.
Okay.
And
so quite traditional Christian,
quite
Catholic
traditional.
upbringing.
I made all my sacraments. But my mom was very much into reading. And so she read a lot of books about angels. She read a lot of books from like Sylvia Browne and psychics and things like that. So that really started grabbing my attention. So when the whole idea of learning Reiki came, I was totally open to it.
Right.
And my mom was like totally open to it. She was like really excited. She was like, "Oh, I can't wait!" And I, did Reiki on her and things like that. So it was wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really interesting to hear, because I came from a strict religious tradition as well, but there was no one that was interested in these things until I found some hidden books that my mother had put away about the aura, angels, and the afterlife. That was more, my mother was very big into genealogy. So the afterlife was something that I was aware of, but that's also quite commonly coming up in religious traditions. So it didn't seem too juju or whatever the word would be. But I know a lot of times there are many misconceptions. There are a lot of preconceived notions and a lot of judgments that many of us grew up with. And I know I had them myself towards the entire topic in general. So was there anything that you felt, were you always open about sharing what you were doing with others, like your friends, for instance? Or was it a more private study?
It was private at first because doing Reiki wasn't really well known. And if people can't see it, smell it, taste it, it doesn't exist. So people would call me a witch. People would call me the voodoo girl and things like that. But then when they became open to it, and I'd be like, you know what, let me just try this on you. Let's do like a 15-minute chair session or whatever. All of a sudden they're like, well, why are your hands so hot? And what's that vibration I'm feeling? Are you sure your hands aren't warmed up? Or things like that. But then they'd warm up to like a full session. And before you knew it, they were coming like once a month. Or they would be shopping at the local mall and they'd be like, hey, I'm having a really rough day. Can I come over and, do a little quick session to help me out? I'm like, absolutely.
Yes. So, when you see other non-believers, if you want to, group people that way, in, alternative therapies, I suppose.
Yes.
It's really a lot of fun to see that crossover.
It is.
Oh, it works for me. And how? Many people don't really care.
No.
Don't
exactly.
care how.
No.
As long as it works. Yeah. So as a beginner, where did you find that you, did you lean on family and friends for information? Where did you, when you were coming up and growing up, were you just receiving and then started looking at as an adult? Or were you reading as a child too, or any research?
When I was a teenager, I was reading all my mother's books.
Okay.
Because she had a ton of them.
That's
everything, from again, angels, afterlife, spirits, etc. So it's always grabbed my attention, And I just feel like I always had kind of like a sixth sense, like I've always wanted to learn more. And this was literally just how it all opened up for me from there.
So you got into Reiki and there's an attunement, there's a levels 1 and 2, and then the master certification.
Yes.
And what other things did that open up for you? What other things did you start to experience or gain interest in?
A lot. It literally opened up doors to everything. I got into oracle cards.
Oracle cards.
Started doing those. I started to learn a little bit more about gemstones and how they work and things like that. It really connected me to nature, which I think is like probably the biggest aha moment I had, where I just really started appreciating everything nature. And I learned just by reading and practicing and going through my own feelings that I'm a water girl. So I love being around water. So it just opened me up to a whole new way of seeing things in life.
And what do you do differently in terms of, do you go outside more often? Are you watching specific parts of nature? You said water's one thing that you're sensing a connection to. Anything else that changed for you around nature? Like how do you
I look at things differently.
Okay.
Like I'll be sitting outside and I'll just like look at the trees and pay attention to the trees. I like to walk around barefoot on the ground because, it helps me ground and feel better about everything. I actually set up bird feeders which is fun when the bears aren't around. But yeah, I just have such a different appreciation for it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you also, I know one of the things that brought us together was what we have some right here.
Oh, yes.
Is once you start to explore energy and become aware of its influence on you. You know, I think a lot of us are commonly aware of the energy of a room, or there's the expression, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Those are palpable, real things that we notice day to day that you can just lumped together as energy. And that's a good way to get a sense of kind of what we're talking about. So especially, for instance, if you're going, you do some real estate, right? You're involved in that. So when you're going into homes, you can feel if, it feels so good in here, or what happened here?
Yes.
And that's a very interesting thing. And I think that's one of the first things I noticed when I became in my early 20s was I was looking at houses and feeling so different as I went from one place to another. And I started to wonder what that was.
Absolutely.
And from that comes the idea, I think a lot of times people will lightly say, oh, did you sage the home? Did you cleanse the home before you moved in? Or your office, or spaces that you're going to inhabit? Talk to me a little bit about what that is and what your knowledge of it is, how you came to experience it, because I know we've done some of that together.
Yes, we have.
So give me a little bit of information, if you would, about what energy cleansing in general means to you.
Absolutely. Well, the way I explain it to everybody is energy is everywhere. And just how you explained it, you could go into a room and just not feel comfortable. Or you could be around a certain person and just be like,
sure.
I just don't like the way this person is. I just don't like the way they feel, the way they talk. That's energy. It's everywhere. And one of the things I always explain is, you know, if you hurt yourself, what's the first thing you do? You touch yourself, correct? So basically, it's almost like everybody can do Reiki and spread energy. It's just you just have to learn how to do that, okay? So with cleansing...
So the idea is sort of innate. We
100%.
initially go, ooh, that hurts, let me hold it. So there's some self-healing happening, whether we're conscious of that or not. That's something we kind of do even as children, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So when it comes to cleansing, especially if it comes to like a house or even cars I've cleansed, because you don't know what's left behind. You don't know the situations that have been there. You don't know what has taken place in those places. So what we could do is we have different tools that we could use for cleansing. The most popular is sage. It's white sage. I just love the smell of it. And they're made of all different things, but usually it's sage.
This is a mix of
Yes.
white sage, some rosemary, and lavender, rose. There's some different healing properties to different herbs.
Correct. So what
Different intentions, I suppose, with each.
Yes. So usually what happens with cleansing is we could take the white sage, and what the sage does is it connects to the negative energy, wherever it is. And I always make sure I have a door open or windows open. And what happens is the white sage cleanses the energy, releases the bad energy, and then that goes out to the universe where it can never be found again. That's the way I like to explain it. So I have, being a real estate agent, I have saged homes for my clients when they bought a house. And I'm just like, this is my gift to you. Like, I'm going to go through the whole house from top to bottom, corner to corner, and we're going to sage anything that negative that could possibly be left over from the prior owners.
So the term sage is commonly interchangeable with cleanse, because you would burn sage to cleanse the space.
Correct.
So the idea is you're attaching negative energy to that smoke and kind of releasing it to the nether regions.
Yes.
Okay. So how do you do it? Can you walk me through the beginner that buys a sage thing at a little store nearby or pulls it out of their garden? Well, how do you do it? Is it something anyone can do? Do you need to be trained? Do you need to have a lot of knowledge?
Anyone can do it. You just have to have the correct attention. You know, so
intention and attention, all of that.
Both of it, correct.
Okay. So how would you make sure you had the correct intention? What would you
The first thing I would do is I would get to the property and I would just kind of like take it in and just kind of like feel what's coming to me, first of all. And I just kind of get an idea of where I want to start. And if we're doing a house, let's say, I always concentrate first on the doors. Okay, because that's where basically people are going to come in and out of, the energy is going to come in and out of. So basically when I start, I say a quiet intention to myself. And I say, I talk to my spirit guides, I speak to the universe, and I'm like, just help bring me to the places in the home and the property that need the most attention. And what I do is I start in the front door and I take the sage, I light it, and I literally just go around the whole door frame.
In a clockwise
Direction? Correct, clockwise direction. And then I'll start going from room to room. And I always go to the corners, because sometimes that's where energy likes to hide.
I have heard that, if you don't mind me interrupting for
No.
a moment, an older Greek grandmother of a friend of mine would, spring cleaning, open all the windows, etc. Maybe light some sage in a bowl in the center of the room while you're cleaning, but she would clap in the corners, break up the spider webs, break up the energy as well. So
Absolutely.
she's hitting it with the broom, and then also noise and the release of the smoke and such. So I always thought that was interesting. So
I do have a small chime that I also do, like when I go into the corners, or if I feel like there's some extra, it just kind of makes me feel like it's just dispersing more.
breaking it up.
Breaking it up, and I'll go into the corners, and if I feel like a certain room or area needs more attention, I'll definitely do it there for a little bit longer. And so I do that with every room and in the house, and then I move to the outside.
And do you go top to bottom, bottom to top?
I go from top to bottom.
Okay.
So, and then I'll go on the outside and I'll do the perimeter of the outside. Same type of thing near the windows and near the doors. And that's it, really. Okay. And then I kind of like discussed, if I felt anything, if I saw anything, because that definitely is part of it.
Right.
It's not like I'm just walking around with this and saging. It's like I'm using my intuition, saying, okay, something might have happened in this room, or something, is not feeling right there. So I always go back again and do like one more sweep.
Okay.
And take it from there.
So a lot of it is sensing and using your 5 senses and your 6th sense.
Correct.
You don't necessarily need to know what's going on, but if you feel inclined to stay in an area, you just do, and you sort of sense your way through it?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you do it wrong?
No.
Correct.
There's
Can't do
no
it
way wrong. No
so
way wrong.
you go top to bottom. I go bottom to top. I go north, south, east, west. So everyone's got a different thing, and I have a sort of a mantra I repeat as I walk through, like anything that is not of the light, get out. And
exactly.
Anything lovely, come on in. It's basically that in a nutshell. So a really simplistic intention setting to lighten a space and to make it comfortable and inviting.
Yes.
But the reason I know about cleansing is that I needed your help a couple of times in spaces that before I even knew what was going on.
Yes.
For instance, a studio space of mine in Collinsville on Main Street was in an old home right in the center of town. There's axe factory buildings and a lot of milling, and a lot of people were very injured and sick, etc. And the building I was in had a long history, many floors, and you came to help me because I was having issues in this space with it just got to the point where I couldn't ignore that something was happening that I wasn't doing, because I'd be there alone and things would, fly off a counter, or I'd be doing a photo shoot and my lights would all turn red for the few minutes. It got a little scary.
Yeah.
And I can ignore things all day long. I think many of us can, but when it gets a little fearful, and then you have a son, which I just had a baby, then I was ready to do something. Because as soon as sometimes kids get involved, people will take action. So this is something that I also share so that people understand sometimes kids are afraid in their bedroom. What do you do?
Right.
So you came in and we walked through this space. We had a similar sense of where we needed to focus our energy, which I thought was extremely interesting.
Yes.
And we also had, we were drawn to different areas. And when we got to some of these areas, there was already existing sage. There were candles there.
That was so crazy.
So it wasn't just us.
Yes.
Which was the coolest part of it. And we kept going to different corners in the attic and the basement, and there were these melted, it looked like years of people.
Different color candles too.
Right. Trying to eradicate whatever I was also trying to eradicate.
Yeah.
And the idea there for me, and what I wanted to ask you about with that, is that this cleansing doesn't, as we were just saying with Reiki, it doesn't just instantly heal, instantly get everything out of there. I mean forever. It doesn't permanently get things out of there forever. For instance, that studio, I had to move. I had to leave. Because it didn't stop happening.
No.
I would feel more comfortable there for about a week or two, and it would go back to how it felt earlier. We also did the same thing at my friend Eric's house. He continually had, after a while, to repeat that. So can you speak to that a little bit? Is that?
I feel what that is just the type of attachment that is at the property. You know, it doesn't want to go. Or
So
it's so deep in.
I commonly don't say it, I say they, because to me in a home, it's probably someone that lived there that is seriously hanging on. It's really,
True.
Sorry.
True.
So.
No, that's true. 100%. It's something that's been there a long time, and they have claimed it as theirs, and they don't want to leave. And they make it the nudge a little bit when we do cleansings, but they don't want to completely leave.
So there is a level of sometimes discussion. What helped me not be afraid was directly speaking to like it was a person.
Yes.
And usually I think of it as like a crotchety old grandfather or somebody's, grandmother or something. And that's like an easier way for me not to get freaked out.
Right.
In the beginning or whatever. And also someone that their grandmother did these sorts of things in Puerto Rico. So it's like Italy, Greece, Puerto Rico, these older cultures that have known about this stuff for years. That's kind of where I've been finding my resources.
Yeah.
Grandmas usually. And the idea is that you're the one in power because you're alive.
Correct.
So you really can say, listen, it's my house, like literally get out.
Yeah. Move on.
And so the move on part gets into another whole discussion, because I know sometimes people move a spirit to the next realm. There's just all kinds of levels of belief around all of this, One is like, smells better in here, I like it. And the other is, oh, the spirit left and went to heaven. And who knows where everyone's at with belief there. But what do you think about what to do when saging isn't enough?
Well, at that point, like you said, try to work with whoever and whatever is there and do exactly what you did. Say, hey, let's try to live together. Like, you could stay, but let's have an understanding that, no more scaring, no more this, no more that. If that doesn't work.
Do you expect an answer when you do something like that?
It depends on the situation.
Really? Okay.
It depends on the situation, to be honest with you. I mean, I've been in situations where, people have learned to live with whomever or whatever is there. And other times it was like, no, this is my house and that's it. So you either could try to find a way to live with it, or like you said, you have to move on. Or if, depending on your beliefs, you may want to have a priest or a holy person come and try to do some kind of exorcism or whatever you feel is needed in that situation.
Yeah, because there's a difference between not feeling good and some evil something else. Yeah, I don't even get into that.
Let's not get into that. That's a completely different story.
We're just talking about, couldn't I feel a little better in here?
Exactly. A little bit lighter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know also that some people say, I've heard people have moved. Say you're in the basement, that's it. And then
give them their space
there
and say,
goes the scary basement mentality. Right?
Yeah. Yes. I'm still afraid of basements.
Oh, I know. And actually, to finish up the show, as well as our earlier discussion about the places we had cleansed that, we didn't know what was going on in that space we were going through, my old studio, but it turned out, we did a little research, and it was a hospital at one point.
Yes, it was.
And also Eric's house had some history as well. So there's a number of things you can find out when you do a little research, and sometimes you can find out what's going on
Absolutely.
before you, get into it. Mm-hmm. So, Chris, this was wonderful.
I had a blast. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate you working through some of the stuff that we don't talk about publicly that often.
Yes.
I don't. You're better at that than I am. So I can't do it one-on-one, but apparently I can come on television and just tell everyone.
Sounds great.
So this is a great way to get some of this information to people that are maybe interested, and if they'd like to know more. The Healing Touch, Christine Banks, is located in Plainville, Connecticut, right next to Farmington here. Mm-hmm. And we, again, thank you for being here today on High Spirits.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Enjoy your afternoon.
The water's warm at Jaws Pond, and we're stocked full of treasures. Big or small, we buy it all. We buy and sell fast rides, power tools, vintage guitars, and so much more. Walk the plank in style with our fine jewelry, diamonds, and watches. Plus, we have a huge selection of the latest video games, including the new PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. Jaws Pond, conveniently located on Meriden Waterbury Turnpike in Southington and West Main Street in New Britain.